You been camping before?
You need to have the answers ready before the problems arise, and learn the lessons today, because tomorrow could be too late.
Time spent in preparation is always time well spent, often lives well saved, sometimes even the difference between success and failure. With so many individual tasks to be coordinated and synchronized, the action on the objective must be rehearsed in every detail and every man briefed individually.
There's no place like home, and today we're going to be talking about the basic shelter setups that you need to know while on patrol or in the field. We're going to be doing this out here in the open so you can apply the principles wherever you may be that in the woodland, in the desert, or out here in an open field. So with that, let's drop this kit and get into it. Once you've picked a campsite and you've dropped your kit, next thing we're going to do is go into our pack and get the stuff we need to make a shelter. Now, in our kit video, we discussed how to pack everything, so what you need to access first will always be on the outside. So with that, let's go through the items that I have in my pack when it comes to shelter building. So the first thing you'll see is on the outside of my pack, I've got a mat. It's got a wet side and a dry side, so I can put that underneath here, have a nice comfortable platform to keep me out of the dirt and the mud. Next, I've got my basher poles. As always, we're clipping up everything in case we have a contact and we need to bounce. On the side here, easily accessible, I have my basher. My basher kit, we'll go through that, but before we do, the last items are over here in the front top pocket. This is going to be extra line. Now, because this video is about setting up a basher in a very open environment, we're not going to go through that today. So come closer, we'll have a look at the basher setup. All right, so looking at the basher setup, first one is, as we open it up, you're going to see I've got my bungees. Those, as we discussed in our shelter part 1, are crucially important. After that, I've got all of my stakes. And then just a little improvised device to keep them from poking everything. And then we have our basher all rolled up. And here we've got 2 extendable basher poles. Total number of bungees will depend on what you're doing, but it's recommended that you have anywhere from 6 to 10. Today we're going to be using a total of 4 bungees to give you guys an idea. 10 pegs, you need 6 to 8. So with that, let's go through how we're going to set up our first shelter, which is going to be the basic and humble A-frame. Okay, so to begin the A-frame, we're going to start with getting out our lines, bungees, tent poles, rolling out our basher in the area that we want to make a shelter. Now the key to this is we're going to be putting the reinforced side with the webbing on the inside or the outside. This one doesn't really matter too much because we're not really putting anything on the center pole, but I like it on the inside with the wax facing outward. Just helps with waterproofing. Okay, so we're going to start by tenting the corners in. Again, those pegs at a 45-degree angle. If you feel resistance, stop, try again. The tent peg will bend before the rock will. I'm staking it down. You can see I'm now putting tension on it because I want that side to be nice and tight. Now going to our basher poles, we're going to go fully extended. for this one. That's because we want that A-frame, you know, to have as much room as possible as we put it up. With these, we're going to put the poles through the eyelets. There's going to be a long end and a slightly more blunt end. Now, what I'm doing here is, if it's windy, it helps to tend to stake the opposite side down, but you'll see how I actually give it a lot of room because I want it loose, because there goes that basher pole. You can see I've got to give it some room. And the point of this is that the whole thing won't go flopping around in the wind. So it's just a good practice to do. I'm going to stake that in now. So what I'm doing is I'm getting it nice and taut, making that entrance at a nice 45-degree angle. I'm going to come around to the other side. We're going to do the same to the back side now. Again, with that long pointy part going through the eyelet, I'm going to line those two up. You can kind of see me with this camera angle looking down, lining it up, and now I'm going to put tension on it. Again, stretch it out, 45-degree angle, starting out a little bit looser, and then we're adding tension slowly to the shelter. Guys, don't try to put tension on these things as soon as you start out, because what's going to happen is you're just going to rip in something, or it's going to be out of whack or out of shape. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm actually staking the center, and I'm coming out, and that's going to add tension to it. Again, 45-degree angle. Now doing this is actually going to droop our center, so that's fine. We're going to, again, stake that out. You can see how that adds tension to both the front and back of the shelter, but then the middle is going to droop. So to mitigate this, what we're going to do is we're going to use our bungees now, and this is why we use that stake end on top, because we're going to stretch our bungee. You can see in the footage now it's nice and loose, and as I pull that bungee, the shelter is becoming tight. Again, we're looking for a 45-degree angle, putting that stake in the ground, getting it nice and tight. At night time, it can help put a chem light on this so you can see them, so you don't trip over them, if your environment permits. We're going to do the same to the back now. Come around back. Again, guys, same thing. We're stretching out, putting the tension on the shelter now. Don't be afraid to make micro adjustments. You know, if it takes you 2 or 3 times to do this, that's perfectly fine. It's better that you put a shelter up the first time, the right time. Do not half-ass it, otherwise it will come falling down on you in the dead of night. And there you have it. That is the A-frame all set up. Right, so now the shelter's up, we're going to grab our equipment, and you're going to see 2 open ends. What we're going to do is we're going to grab our pack and then use that pack to block up one side of that shelter. This is why I'm a fan of deploying the sleep mat, having it nice and available and accessible. Again, you'll probably be doing this at night. You don't want to be digging for a sleeping mat in the bottom of your pack or, you know, some other place. So, nice, easy, foldable. This one's a German one. Here you go, just slide it in there. You can fit 2 guys in here. I'm going to take the webbing off. The webbing's great for this, guys. Chest rigs, especially when you're putting up shelters and you're trying to do stuff, can just get in the way. Body armor's terrible for fieldcraft, so webbing's definitely the way to go. And there you have it. Just crawl inside and let's go inside and have a talk about it. So why is the A-frame a good shelter? Well, as you can see, there's actually enough room in here for 2 guys. We've got our pack on one end, creating a physical barrier. We have enough room, if it's just one of you, to lay out all of your equipment, and just enough room that you can prop yourself up and take care of any admin tasks, such as wet-dry drills. We can also use these loops at the top of the British Basher to hang things like socks, or we can run a bungee from pole to pole on the inside to give more rigidity to the top, and also do things like hang socks or chem lights for nighttime. The A-frame is fantastic at shedding water and rain as well. The only downside is we have 2 openings, but again, that can be blocked with equipment or sticks or logs. But for a safe area, then the A-frame is definitely one of my favorites, as it gives you lots of room to spread out, especially on the inside. So this is the basic A-frame setup. You can see, standing at the back, and standing at the front of it, the size comparison. It's very good if you have two people. It's also very good at shedding rain and also in the wind. The only downside to this type of shelter is that the backs and sides, the backs are open, but we can use our packs and materials to clog those up. Overall, this is your best basic shelter. It kind of does a bit of everything. It keeps us out of the wind, keeps us out of the cold and the rain, and it's also quick and easy to set up. It does very well between two trees also, and phenomenally well in an open field such as this one. So with that, let's take down the shelter and get on to our next one, which is going to be the Basha tent. Okay, so let's talk about setting up the tent. So this one's a little bit more complicated. So you're going to lay the basher down long ways, looking down it, and you're going to find the center, and then either side of the center are going to be your two, pointing to them now, your eyelets. And you're going to look the center, and you're going to put the two outward, and you're going to stake those in. Don't worry about getting it too tight now. All we're doing is we're finding the center, then staking in the two ones to the left and right of that center. So that should leave us with the corners. Now I'm pointing to those. We leave our corners free, and now we come over to the other side, and we're putting medium amount of tension on this. About a 30-degree angle, staking that inward. So you can see we've left the center long ways unstaked, and we're now tucking in the corners, and we're going to come around. We're going to do this to the same side. Now the side that we stake down is going to be the back. Again, I'm leaving the corners. I'm going one eyelet in, staking it under, 30-degree angle, and we're getting it medium, nice and tight. The idea is to get it tight from the peg, not the long way. You just saw me point there. Okay, so the back of the shelter, which is what we're staking now, is going to be facing the direction that the wind is coming from. So you can see that I'm making sure it's nice and loose. We'll come to the side. Now we're going to stake our front one. Again, the idea with this is we want to leave the center nice and loose, but we're getting our corners nice and tight. You'll see me do that here. So I'm making it nice and tight, but I'm coming in now on a slight angle, probably about 10 degrees. Getting my two basher poles. So what we're going to do is we're going to fully extend one basher pole. That's going to be our front. And then we're going to leave the rear one fully collapsed, and I'm going to show you how to put that one in now. So we're coming through the eyelet. Again, that long part of the pole. You'll see that I'm placing it. This is where in the shelter I'm going to place that basher pole on the inside. So I'm just kind of placing it there so you guys get an idea of where it's going to go. Now, for this shelter, I like the webbing, the reinforced side, to be facing down in the inside. And that's because when we erect the center of the shelter, it's just going to give it some extra protection. So the wax seal is going to be on the outside. Staking in the front, just like your A-frame, your 45-degree angle. And now I'm going to grab this pole and I'm going to go on the inside. But before I do, you see me loosen that tent peg because we want more tension on, less tension on the inside for now. Again, tucking under those corners because our pole, which I'm pointing to, is now going to go on the inside. Now we have a very pointy end and a very blunt end of the pole. The blunt end is going to be the part touching the basher. The pointy end is going to be going into the ground. So I'm going underneath now, and I'm placing that in the center of the... There you go, you can see it right there. You can see how it's on the webbing to support and protect the basher. So that's the view from the inside, and this is how I erect it. So I start with it all the way down, and then what I do is I actually pull up, and then I get nice and tight, and then I hold it, and then I tighten it. And that is the trick to erecting this shelter properly, is doing that. So now I'm on the outside again, and basically what I'm doing now is I'm just making sure it looks pretty. I'm going to play around with the tension of the shelter. And I want all those sides nice and tight, tucking in those corners. And again, guys, take your time, do it right the first time, and you won't have to do it again. If you're putting up this shelter, it's for two reasons. It's one, you need the camouflage, or two, it is piss pouring it down and you need that shelter. So the chance of high winds, the chance of rain, just do it right the first time. So this is a two-man shelter, so you could use the other basher of your partner as a ground sheet or fly on the inside. And he could be doing that while the other person is, putting up this shelter. Work as a team, guys. Again, just making sure that tension's nice and good. And this is why it always helps to have those extra poles and pegs, because you never know what you'll need. So now you'll see it coming together. So watch this. So I put tension on the front. I'm kind of like, almost like making a bed sheet. You're working your way back from one corner. And then I'm going around, and you'll see how it keeps creasing. Again, that's fine. It doesn't mean you've done it wrong. You're just adjusting that. You're just making those micro adjustments when you put up this shelter, so you can get the right amount of tension in the right places. As always, practice this, guys. But at the end of the day, you're going to be making this on different terrain, so you never know what you'll get, which is why it's important to practice. So there you have it. There's the completed shelter. You can see how it comes down in the back, and we've created almost a diamond shape in the rear. And from the front, you can see it's got the A-frame front, and then that lower pole in the back, and it ultimately droops down. Putting your kit inside, a little bit more low profile than the A-frame, so you've got to be careful taking the webbing off. Again, fantastic way to organize your kit. And then that quick deployable mat is just an absolute lifesaver. Don't be putting your mats on the inside of your packs. Make them accessible, guys, because again, when you're putting up these shelters, you're going to be tired, it's going to be dark, and you need to know where everything is. Putting the kit on the inside, the webbing, and then the pack. There you go. And again, that can be used to block that single entrance of the shelter. So that's it. That's how you set up the Basher tent. So let's go inside and talk about it. So let's talk about the tent setup that we've got here. So this is your Basher setup. Kind of looks like a normal camping tent, doesn't it? Now, what's good about this is it gives us a lot of the room in the A-frame. We've got our internal poles for support, but it droops downwards. So you're going to get a little bit less room than an A-frame. But the good thing about this shelter is it provides excellent wind and environmental protection. The A-frame is great for good weather, light rain, drizzle, dew, but this shelter is really good if you're facing weather or high winds. If it was raining, then I definitely would choose this shelter. Again, you can fit two men inside here. You can put your kit at this end to prop up against that wind, and you can also lean up, access your equipment, and do everything that you've got to do. So the tent is the tent, right, is a great option for when you've got that really bad weather and you need a little bit more robust, low profile protection. And this, again, when you've got the bungees, when you've got the poles, guys, it just makes it so easy and quick to set up. That's why these are a great investment. If you've got weather coming, you don't want to be looking for sticks and whittling away bushcraft. These military Basher poles, the extendable ones, are absolutely crucial for putting up quick emergency shelters such as this one. Another thing we can do is we can get our bungees and we can run them on the inside to help give a little bit more roof support. And again, we can hang stuff from the roof as well. So with that, let's get on to our next shelter. Okay, so here we have the lean-to shelter. The first step to this is we're going to prep our Basher poles. We want them fully extended. Again, we've got that pointy side. It's going to be going through the eyelets of the Basher, and then the flat side towards, or the more dull side towards the ground. laying out our basha flat. So this one again, we actually want the wax on the inside. The reason is we're going to be utilizing the center webbing on the outside to fold over and peg into the ground for a make-do ground sheet. So you see me put it down. Then I'm going to grab my pegs and I'm going to peg halfway through the shelter, again 45-degree angle, avoiding those rocks. So you can actually see me going in and then correcting. Again, if you hit something like a rock, the peg will not go through the rock, just come out, readjust the position and the angle to get it right. So we're pegging down our two sides. We're then getting our basha poles and our bungees. So this one's a little bit hard to put up. You'll see there, I got up for the eyelet and I'm using the soft ground to just stake that in. Now I'm going to take my bungee. I'm going to make a 45-degree angle. Lots of 45s with these shelters, guys. And then I'm pegging it in. And now I actually got lucky. I don't expect it to hold. Easier with a teammate as anything is. But we're just getting it up there. If you got to put it on the ground and then put them up one at a time, that's fine as well. So now you can see me putting tension on. Again, with any of these shelters, guys, we've got the initial tension. And then we're going to fine-tune the shelter. So now you can really see that tension coming out on that bungee. You see that peg, 45-degree angle, putting it in like so. You see it tugging on that side, that's fine. We're going to go back and correct that. So as I'm walking around, I'm looking at the back of the shelter, I'm inspecting it, and now I'm getting that ground sheet and I'm putting it underneath. Now you got two options. You can either peg the ground sheet with pegs or use those poles. I'm a fan of the pegs just because if a pole slips then it can mess up your ground sheet. I always found it creates a little bit more rigidity. You can do this shelter without a ground sheet and just have a massive fly. You're going to need longer poles and ideally a tree or something to hold up the center of the shelter. But we'll go into more detail with our next episode on this when it comes to setting up these in a woodland or an urban environment. Okay, so that's really it. So now we've got it set up. I'm going to fine tune it again, getting it as tight as possible. Walking around the back, and now what I can do is I can actually stake the back, and that's going to put a little bit of tension. That back's going to be a little bit droopy, guys. It's just the nature of this shelter. It's just how it is. Our other option is we can use a peg in the middle, or we can use a line again with a tree or something. Okay, so I got some more pegs now. I'm coming around the back and I'm just staking it in. Kind of just inspecting that shelter, seeing what it's doing. Now, I'm doing this to show you guys a few options. So the first one is, you're going to see a hook there. I've got the bungee. Now, we can actually do one of two things. We can either come around the back, which you can see me do, and I can actually put a stake way in the back, or I can use our bungees to make two lines, so we've got one at 45 and then one coming outward. You can see me just fixing it now. Again, what I wanted to do was I wanted to hook that in to show you guys where that point was, correcting those poles, and now I'm really putting that tension on it as I'm building this shelter. You'll see those poles are actually at quite extreme angles. That's fine. Yeah, that bungee just flew off there. Staking it in as I go along. So now you can see, use that extra bungee, really got that tension on it now. And then I've got that peg in. I find with these lean-tos, it's a combination of your environment and kind of the situation, but they all require something a little bit different. There you go, just backing that out a little bit more now. Very, very minute stuff. Okay, so now we're going to put down our ground sheet. Our mat, our pack. And this shelter, it's a very open shelter. It's not for heavy rain, it's not for heavy wind. It's really kind of like a day shelter. You're in a safe environment, or you're somewhere very, very hot or very, very humid where you need a lot of airflow. But if you're spending a day, there's no bugs out or anything like that. It's a wonderful outdoor shelter for enjoying, honestly, the outdoors. You can see my kit there. You can see the offset of the pegs in the front, and you can see just how tight I was able to get that. Again, lots of room for admin. So let's talk about it. So let's talk about the humble lean-to shelter. It's one of my favorites. Honestly, it's used when you're in a very safe area, or it's very, very hot, as it allows fantastic airflow. What's nice about this shelter is, honestly, you get to enjoy the view. It's very open, and it's also very quick and easy to set up. By folding over the Basha, we actually give ourselves a layer of moisture protection as well if it's very dewy out. So easy, fantastic shelter, gives us a lot of space to do admin work as well. Guys, while we pack up here, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time and the support. The channel's growing, and that wouldn't be possible without you. So I really hope you're enjoying this military Fieldcraft series. I am having a ton of fun filming it. Guys, if there's anything that you want to see or learn, it's a lot of research, but please comment below. Tell me how I can improve and what you guys want to see. We have Instagram up. That's Echo Mike Training on Instagram. So go ahead, give us a follow, and I post a lot more detailed stuff on there. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time. As always, look after your mates, look after each other, and I'll see you guys on the next one. So, for closing thoughts today, a quote: hard work doesn't equal results, productive work equals results. So, I think that's very applicable. Just because you're working hard doesn't mean that you're going to get results. It has to be productive. And hopefully series like this, skills such as this, can differentiate the difference between being productive, using techniques and little tricks, compared to just being out there trying to figure it out, working really hard physically, mentally, and trying to figure this out. So let this be about productive work. And just like your careers and your jobs, guys, or anything in life, it's not about how hard you work, it's about how effectively you're working. So make sure you get out there, you're training, and we're being productive.